Hello, I am Super Orange Cat here today with the new edition of the Downward Spiral. Today I'll be watching or I'll be reviewing The Promised Neverland Season 2, Episode 5. If you haven't been following along, this is a short mini-series I'm going to be doing here on my channel regarding me watching one episode at a time on Toonami, The Promised Neverland Season 2, which has gained a pretty infamous reputation, and just giving my thoughts and opinions on it, and maybe you'll see a mental breakdown or two. Who knows? That's the fun. So, first all I like to do is give a brief synopsis of what happens in the episode, and then just give some of my general thoughts on it. First things first, we get shown to a demon town, a small village. You see masked figures, some are pretty prominently featured, walking through, and you see them walk into a clearance and into a temple. Now you see the kids from the Gracefield house get a bit worried as they see a bell shake, indicating that someone has entered the temple to find a few masked figures, which are ultimately revealed to be Emma, Ray, Dawn, and Gilda, the four main kids of the season so far. So everyone's relieved. However, they reveal they hadn't quite got as much food as they had hoped, and that they're starting to get a little low in supplies, indicating a bit of a burning clock. However, at that instant, another bell gets rung, and it turns out it's a big, giant, blind demon. And this is where it's revealed that they're in a temple. So, being blind, he cannot see the kids, clearly. So, he presumes they're demon children. He's like, well, don't desecrate the shrine. Go on, scram. However, he drops his basket of apples while praying, and Emma very boldly helps him, and he thanks her. And then he walks out of the temple. So then you have Gilda very pissed off that Emma took this chance. And then later on, when they decided to, you had this moment also later that night where Emma's crying out in the corner because she couldn't do enough for her family. Then you had Ray come over and comfort her. The next scene, you see two kids. I forgot their names. Honestly, if they're not part of the Big Four, I forgot completely what their names are. The one, like the brown, there's like one black hair kid and the kid that looks like Odd from Code Lyoko. They're complaining. They want to go along to the demon town. However, Emma's like, don't be stupid. You're going to get caught. Then the boys are like, fine, can we just go out in the woods and help hunt for stuff? And they're like, sure, fine. So then they get more of the fish from like last episode, and that took like 5 minutes. And then those two boys concoct a plan to like get invited to go to the demon town with them, which works. And while walking, they bump into two guys. Okay, Miles, since I mentioned these two guys, I have to explain the fact that they're given a plot line this episode. So back in the demon town, these two men are, I guess, hunters or some type of tradesmen. They show that they're taking care of two kids, both of whom are in bad condition, where they revealed that human meat is actually helpful for demons as for regenerative properties. And they're like, well, we need some. The meat that they do get here is pretty poor quality. And they complain that the rich get to crowd all the best meat from the best farms. So they show this element of like political intrigue. So then they're like, well, we heard that the Gracefield kids are around, have to be around, that they're going to be sending people to this area. So maybe the kids are around here, So they resolve, okay, for our kids that we're taking care of, we're going to find this meat. So then they bump into one of the two boys. And they're like, they catch a scent that smells like human. They're like, oh, that smells good. And then by the boys scrambling and running, they're like, well, this must be humans. So then they chase after them. And then they ultimately get diverted, chase Ray and Emma instead, while the two boys, along with Dawn and Gilda, safely walk back with one demon that kind of follows them and sees which direction they took to leave town. However, right at the moment where it looks like that Emma and Ray are pinned and cornered by the two hunters or the two demons that want meat for their kids, all of a sudden you see a bunch of other demons show up, surround them, and then just take a letter opener, and just freaking kill these two other demons. And at the end, they're like, who are you two? And one of the gang removes their mask, where we learn that it is, in fact, Norman. And that is how the episode ends. Now, to give some of my thoughts about this episode, a lot of people, like the general consensus, and I've mentioned this plenty of times before, is that after episode 3 is when things really start to go downhill for the season. The last episode I can definitely see the argument for last episode, but I didn't think it was that bad. I ultimately have the same opinion about this episode. There's definitely faults with this episode. And at this point, it has gone so far off from the manga. I think we're just off the books at this point. So me saying stuff like, "Well, it's in the manga. It's in the manga." I think this has no meaning anymore because we've definitely gone in a different route at this point. The Norman reveal is far later in the manga, by the way, and the reveal that Isabella was like hunting him, which we don't know. We didn't get any more information about this episode. That's later in the manga as well. So it is very clear they're rushing through things, and honestly, it's gotten to the point where if you're only an anime only watcher, I think you've caught on to this point that they are rushing through things. Like the end of the last episode, you had the kids running through the forest, away from the bunker and away from where G.I. Joe was, and all of a sudden they found this temple some distance away near this town where they're getting resources from. Yet they don't explain anything about this. They don't explain, oh, they don't even have like a throwaway line where it's like, oh, we found this blank blank. And they showed also the diary of Anna again, which is the only way we'll know what time is, I guess. And I believe it's been like another like 6 months or so. I can't remember the exact dates. So at this point, when they originally left Grace Fieldhouse, like, okay, Emma was like, with my calculations, we have about 2 years to go back, save Phil and the others. It's been about a year and a half at this point, and they have no real game plan right now. It's now just run through the woods, find somewhere, live there until we have to leave, and then move, which is an absolutely horrible game plan to have at this point, you know. And considering these kids were smart enough to figure out a way outside the Grace Fieldhouse, you gotta imagine they would come up with better plans at this point. Because right now, the whole pen doesn't matter anymore because the whole point of the pen was to direct them to William Minerva's bunker, which they can't go to anymore. So, what do you do? And really, it feels like the season has been so much riding on the back foot, to so to speak, where it feels like this happens, so the kids have to do this, but then this happens and the kids have to do this. It doesn't feel like season one. It definitely felt like there was a game plan in place, which paid off at the end, which is why I gave season one a 9.5 out of 10. It was executed flawlessly. This season, it really feels like even the better moments feel like what would have been lower highlights of the first season, you know? And the reveal of Norman here just kind of felt like, again, like the end of the last episode where the kids were cornered by G.I. Joe, and then the demon just shows up out of nowhere and just eats all the G.I. Joe members right then and there and saving the kids. You know, it just felt like this is like the third time this season they have been saved by plot contrivance. Not a plot hole, plot contrivance, which is literally them writing the plot to get yourself out of a corner sloppily. Because you also had Sanju and Mujika saving the kids from the demons at the end of the first episode. And now you have, oh crap, these two human hunters. They have Ray and Emma pinned down in a corner. Oh no, here comes Norman and his gang of merry pranksters to show up and just brutally kill these guys. And more about these characters too. They open up this plot arc in this episode about intrigue within the demon kingdom. Because you have shut up this whole setup where it's like, okay, the human meat is more of a 1%er hogging it from everyone else type situation. And they imply that the best farms, of which Grace Fieldhouse is one of them, all that meat goes to the rich, higher up demons, and the lower up demons greatly resent them for that. As you have the two demons saying, well, man, the only meat we can have is like these like hands and these like cheap parts. And it's already been established in the show that the most favorite part of demons to eat are the human brains. So you have this intrigue, which if this show was going more than one more season, if this wasn't last season, that would be a great thing to set up for a long-term arc. But you have 6 episodes left now, and with all that you have to do with the intrigue with the kids, you can't fit this in as well. You're trying to fit everything in, rushing through it, and it's gotten to the point, I think anime only watchers can read through the lines here and see they can just tell a lot's been skipped here. Like you just skip right from we're being chased by demons to, oh, by the way, we found this temple, you know? And it's just like this like lazy, and also they had this thing where you have scenes just drag in this episode too. Like you had the scene early on with the old blind man that lasts like 4 episodes for something that's ultimately low stakes because the guy is blind. He assumes the kids are demons. So if you just stay far enough away from where he's not going to smell you, which you gotta imagine would be a heightened sense considering he's blind. Then you're cool because he's not gonna imagine that there's a bunch of human kids in this temple. That was low stakes. And then you have another scene. You have another scene where they're hunting these damn blackfish on these trees. This lasts like only lasts like 3 minutes this time, but still, when you have all this plot to cover, you can't afford to waste any time like that. It's a scene that was ultimately worthless because they still go into the demon town again, and it felt like the one point reason to go and hunt these animals was to, well, we can't go into the demon town because we can't get the resources we need there. So just get stuff from the wilderness, which was working when you were in William Minerva's bunker. Oh, sorry, James Rattry's bunker. Too bad we're not going to know why that was an important reveal last episode. Because you remember, like, towards the start of this episode 4, you had William Minerva be like, oh, by the way, my name is James Rattry. Oh, in the manga, that's important for a reason. You're not going to know it here, by the way. And it doesn't really matter that much, I guess. But it feels, this is torturous to people who love and worship the manga. And I read a bunch of like online sources of people responding when the sub came out, and it really was just anime watchers being like, it's okay, and then manga readers just freaking out. I don't blame them. I really do not, because it is so frustrating. Like, it got to the point I have to consult the manga because I'm like, I don't remember this happening. I don't remember this happening here. Did they skip this? All these different things. And admittedly, if you only have 11 episodes, I don't blame you. And I don't know if Toonami, and by the way, I'm going to forget this if I don't mention this now. I don't know. Toonami's reputation of recap episodes, I think they do air them. I believe next episode is supposed to be a recap episode. I don't know if Toonami's going to skip it. Toonami, if they have an excuse to air something, usually does to extend things out a week. If they do, the reaction is gonna be glorious with all the people reacting like, of all the stuff we skipped, we're gonna get a clip show. Like, holy crap. And at this point, it'd be interesting to do that. They might not. I don't remember the length of what the clip show was. Sometimes they have these where it's like an 8-episode long, like, mini episode, which, considering that Toonami has to fit in these blocks, they can't air those. Like, it's a struggle for Toonami to air some episodes sometimes because some episodes are written to air in like a 35-minute block. For example, the last episode, episode 6 of Fully Cooley, when they air that, they have to block out an extra 5 minutes because where the other episodes are around 23, 24 minutes long, that one's about 30 minutes. And if you have to add a commercial break, that pushes you over that time slot. But enough about that. Back to The Promised Neverland. Ultimately, I mean, at the end, honestly, at this point, I'm not surprised by how they revealed Norman. I'm just like, sure, why not at this point with regards to that? It wasn't a horrible reveal, considering Norman did just save them. And another thing about that scene, and that's another scene that dragged, the whole chase scene, honestly just felt like an excuse to animate Ray and Emma jumping from building to building, which I guess no demons saw. Like, for example, there's another anime I remember loving watching called Engaged the Unidentified. If you don't know it, it's the anime that had the meme of the girl saying, I hate Sundays, and then promptly dancing. You know? And there was a scene where she's like a magical dog person, so she has the ability to jump from building to building. And because they live in human society, they're like, don't do that, you're going to give yourself away. He does it, and then like a girl, like a news reporter from distance sees this and is like, is that a person on top of the building? So she runs off panicked. And it's like, that reminds me of like, did no demons see any, just for the sake of commotion, no one noticed the kids running away from these other two demons. That's what I was like thinking, like, well, maybe they didn't tell that they're human, but like at the same time, it's like, I mean, it's for the sake of commotion. People walk and want to see commotion. That's like, why do you think a lot of people stand outside of buildings when something's on fire? Because people want to see this type of thing, So you got to imagine, I'm surprised you didn't have more people show up than the gang that saved Ray and Emma and then the two other demon guys. It felt weird. They gave the demon guys this plot line with like, oh, you got to save Tiny Tim and what weird dog crap, or dog animal thing that's also a demon or something, larvae or whatever. And then you have this like larvae, and then like you have them like try to save them. It's like, what's the point of creating these characters? It looks like they're going to give them something of a plot line. why give these characters a plot line if you're just gonna kill them like that, you know? I mean, and again, you're running out of time. You have to do all these plot beats so fast. Why would you spend time on things that are ultimately not gonna be covered, you know? And yeah, that's really the end of my rant here, you know? And ultimately, like I said, if you're an anime only watcher, I can definitely understand you watching this being like, it was a good episode, especially with the twist at the end that Norman's still alive, which really isn't much of a twist. If you follow any, it really feels like an anime trope. If they don't show you die, you're probably still alive. If you remember back in season 1, when Norman was set to be killed, they had like someone walk into the room and like Norman look up, and they don't show him getting killed or anything. And I just honestly imagine that point, they'll be like, well, think about it this way. They already reveal past that they use like the smarter girls to become mamas, to oversee farms. And for some of them, they choose to breed. Like, for example, Isabella, she gave birth to Ray. So you got to imagine, well, where's the sperm coming from? So I imagine they would use Ray for like some type of like sperm donor situation to artificially breed or something. Be like, oh, that's disgusting. It's like, dude, this is a society where they're eating kids for their brains. All bets are off at this point, man. And really, honestly, I'm okay with that. A lot of people apparently freaked out about it. I'm okay with how they revealed Norman. And at the same time, it really feels like I want to know how bad they're going to screw this up in the future. Because this is, I remember in the manga, this was like towards the end, they reveal, oh, by the way, Ray's still alive. Not Ray, Norman is still alive. And it's like this very heartfelt, emotional moment. But here it really just felt like Norman reveals the mask, like, what's that? What's that? What's up? Like an old '90s Budweiser commercial. Go, what's up? And then you have Ray and Emma. This is the I'm showing here. This is the reaction to seeing Norman being alive. They're like, Norman, and then Norman's like, what's up? You know, and like everyone's panicking. Norman was waiting for this moment for forever, probably. Like he has a shit-eating grin right now, and ultimately, I liked it. Only thing One thing I didn't like about this episode too is there is no piano music, there's no montage, so I couldn't make my Chick-fil-A joke. However, for every time Norman does something, I will be saying, freaking Normans! You know, which I think is going to be a fun thing to do, and is going to totally irritate my entire audience. What do you guys think? If I had to rate this episode, I'm actually going to bump it up a bit. I'm going to go give this episode a 6.5 out of 10. What do you think? What were your opinions? Are you excited to see what wacky directions this show is going to take? Leave your comments, leave your opinions down below. I love reading them. If you like this content, if you want more wacky Toonami content like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. I am the Super Orange Cat, and that is all.